This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time.
Welcome to the Stop and Listen podcast. I am your host, Jamie. So, RFK Jr. I listened to this book, and then I bought it for support and, for reference in the future. Maybe I'll actually read the pages. RFK Jr. I knew who's kooky. I heard he was into conspiracy theories and stuff, and he ran for president. I was really hoping for some. Even this book, I was anticipating hearing some crazy crap in this book, and it all sounded pretty damn legitimate to me, and should be investigated. But he's got some interesting ideas. And I knew he was left-wing. I knew he was very, very liberal. What caught me by RFKJ is he was saying some real things. Okay, so here is, during the Super Bowl, Kennedy ran an ad. And let's watch that.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through? A man who's old enough to know
and young enough to do?
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
American Value 2024 is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Now, why then this happened?
One Super Bowl ad generating controversy promoted Robert Kennedy Jr.'s run for president. It was a carbon copy of a spot from his uncle JFK's 1960 bid for the White House, and it infuriated several members of his family. Well, now Kennedy's apologizing.
It may have been the most shocking ad to air during the Super Bowl. It's an ad for controversial third-party presidential candidate Bobby Kennedy Jr. It was a carbon copy of the ad that helped propel his uncle, JFK, to the White House in 1960. Except in place of JFK, the image of Bobby was inserted. The ad is infuriating Kennedy's famous family.
There's a nostalgia, there's a brand there, there's a love for that family. But everything he stands for is counter to the Kennedy family.
His family did not like that. Well, his family didn't like it because they don't like anything that he's doing.
My cousin's Super Bowl ad used our uncle's faces and my mother's, says Bobby Shriver, son of JFK's late sister Eunice Shriver. She would be appalled by his deadly healthcare views. Now, RFK Jr. is apologizing. I'm so sorry if the Super...
His healthcare views are... shots aren't always the answer. But sometimes he's been quite adamant that he is in support of many of them. So, can you two forgive me?
Super Bowl advertisement caused anyone in my family pain. The ad was created and aired by the American Values Super PAC without any involvement or approval from my campaign. I love you all. God bless you.
That's a lie. That is a lie. There's no chance in the world that a commercial would air he didn't approve of. And there was nothing wrong with it. He honored his uncle. Now, this week, it was confirmed that Biden and Trump are going to debate, and Kennedy's going to be left out. They say because he doesn't have a path to 270, and he doesn't at this point just because he's not even eligible in that many states. So if that changes, I hope he gets on the stage. But it was Biden's rules, and like it would only be worse because he could debate Trump would make sure that everyone knew that Kennedy wasn't a second option if you were leaning his way. Then Kennedy would have been able to make the case that if you lean Democrat, he was the way to go. I think Kennedy is sharp enough, he would have even made Trump look bad. So I do hope I see him on the stage. I mean, maybe he'll vote. Maybe he'll, not vote. Maybe he'll debate Jill Stein and Cornel West. Cornel West. He's not Colonel West. So here's a JFK's State of the Union address, his response.
I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm running as an independent candidate for President of the United States. I grew up in an America that seemed to have achieved its promise as an exemplary nation. Modern democracy had spread from one nation, ours, in 1776 to 6 by 1865 and to 190 by the 1960s. We had become the city on the hill. We were a moral authority around the globe. Our government, institutions, our Congress, the court, the regulatory agencies, and even the American press were renowned for their integrity, and they were revered worldwide. Other nations wanted our American leadership. They knew the difference between leadership and bullying, which is something our current leaders seem to have forgotten. We were the template of liberty, proof that for a country to thrive, its people must be free. Free to speak, free to worship, free to build great companies, free to start small businesses. We were the freest country in the world, and by
there is an ad. I seen a campaign ad, some kind of video for Kennedy, and it was awesome. And I cannot find it for nothing. I can't find it on his own page. Now, to RFK Jr.'s credit, he did warn this country. He did warn people that may have been listening to him, that may have been not listening to other sources.
You, in 2000, Ralph Nader obviously was running, and you did an interview with NBC News just a few months before the election. You said this.
There's a political reality here, which is that his candidacy could draw enough votes in certain key states from Al Gore to give the entire election to George W. Bush.
And then you wrote an op-ed in the New York Times. You wrote, Ralph Nader is my friend and hero, but Mr. Nader's candidacy could siphon votes from Al Gore. Mr. Nader dismisses his spoiler role by arguing there is little distinction between the major party candidates and that Mr. Gore is compromised on too many issues. While I admire his high-minded ideals, his suggestion that there is no difference between Mr. Gore and Mr. Bush is irresponsible. A moment ago, you said you essentially see Trump and Biden as the same. Different issues. But do you really believe that when people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent. I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court. It shows that he started censoring not just me. 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me. No president in the country has ever done that. The greatest.
Very true. He said it, great. There's this.
Disturbing but fun story. RFK Jr. says a worm ate part of his brain and then died inside his head. How are you guys doing?
I mean, I think it's badass that the worm died. That's like a...
Okay. 12 years ago. So, but the big question was who was going to be his VP? Tulsi Gabbard, I believe, would have given him the biggest advantage because she's also a former Democrat that quit the party because of their actions. And she's no conservative. So this seems like that would have been the perfect ticket. And apparently she turned him down. And, there are other videos I've just done last week or so. So saying why, I think, because I'm hoping she's going with Trump. So then it surfaced that he was picking between Aaron Rodgers and Jesse Ventura. Now, Jesse Ventura is a former wrestler, professional wrestler like WWF or WWE, and then he was the governor of Minnesota. Jesse Ventura a few years ago had like a conspiracy theory show on cable, and he always like, "I'm just asking questions." I just want to hear Jesse Ventura say, "I'm just asking questions." YouTube search sucks. It sucks. But I mean, I thought Jesse Ventura. Okay, that's really out there. But RFK's out there. But like Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback that's playing football now, not at the moment, but like what? Now, like he always now Aaron Rodgers. I'm not a big football fan. He's kind of a bit of a prick. But he got into some hot water because he lied about the getting the COVID shot, or he just refused to and then got COVID. Anyway, but then I heard Aaron Rodgers on Tucker Carlson this week, and like, oh my goodness, watch that if you have an opportunity to. That was awesome. So I don't think that would have been actually that bad of a choice, if RFK actually made it to the White House. But then he picked a name. But then RFK picked a woman named Nicole Shanahan. And she was married to Nicole Shanahan. She was married to Sergey Brin, I believe, the guy who runs Alphabet, Google. Yeah, Sergey Brin. And apparently, there was rumors that she had an affair with Elon. That's what broke up her marriage. But she's a radical leftist with a lot of money. And apparently she paid for that campaign ad, the Super Bowl ad. So any chance that he was actually going to take any decent amount of votes away from Trump disappeared when he picked her. So we really, we knew where it was going. As I've said in previous videos, I would have been okay with a RFK Jr. presidency, provided the right VP pick, like Tulsi. And I knew I would hate his Supreme Court justices in that theoretical event because he's very liberal. And I'm not sure if many people really knew how liberal he was until he went on Sage Steele's podcast and talks about abortion. And I got some context here on the from YouTube. Thanks, YouTube, for telling me what abortion is.
Your stance on abortion is what?
I've been probably arguably one of the leading people in this country for medical freedom and for bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
So, and I think with abortion, every abortion is a tragedy. Many of them leave.
Then stop it. He's right. Stop it, because the victimization, even if the pregnancy occurs by force, by rape, I understand. Like I can't fathom what it'd be like to be pregnant, obviously, but being impregnated by someone who violated you and why you would want to just rid yourself as much of that memory. But the memory doesn't change what happened. That baby is not who raped you. And I don't know, maybe it's an instinctual thing of like, hey man, half of this little thing's DNA raped me. I don't know. It's a horrible thing. But even if the mother would decide to kill her child because she was raped, and many years ago, I even had a biblical argument for why that would have been permissible when I had more liberal views. But as Kennedy, I think, maybe alluding to in his choice of words, is that there's a lot of women that stays with them and never leaves them, and they never get over it. So something horrible, evil happens. You punish the consequence of that evil action, but not the one who did it. And then the woman has now been raped and killed her own child. That is horrible. It's horrible. How many women have done that? And I can't, especially in this culture, I certainly can't, it's hard to like hate on women too much for doing that. Because even with a culture like I wish we had, that had no abortion, that's still, man, that's a hard one. That is difficult. Luckily, when people bring that up, it's like almost 0% of the cases, like 1%, less than that.
Permanent trauma on the woman, but I think ultimately I don't trust government to have jurisdiction over people's bodies. Mm-hmm. I think we need to leave it to the woman, her pastor, and to her spiritual advisors or her physician, whatever, to make those decisions. I have to say this, that I have a plan that we've published, which is called More Choice and Fewer Abortions. And, that plan, something like close to 60% of abortions.
The only thing you could do would be, you could offer just to buy the babies. Like, sorry, this horrible thing happened in the case of rape, or they were just being careless. I mean, you could just offer to buy them, but then I think there's a lot of women that would just use that as a source of income. So,
women
still be better than nothing.
Make the decision for economic reasons, and I think we need to do everything we can to make sure that women who want to bring their babies to term and are scared of not being able to afford them, that is never a consideration.
There are so many. I love that you're doing. There's so many opportunities.
He has a point there. I have very good family. And I don't have like rich family. Well, I mean, I have family members that would give their last dollar to help me. I can't fathom what it would be like not to have family to turn to. Cultural Marxism has made women act the way they do, and men consequently act the way they do. We're not looking out for women because they've been told that we shouldn't need to, and we are accepting it. So it means like we can't be like, hey man, these radical feminists, they've just turned women against us and brainwashed them. Well, we stood by and let it happen. We did, right? As men, didn't we?
And Catholic Charities, I mean, there's so many opportunities for women to make other choices, and sometimes it's just about them knowing and just about the education part of it.
It's also about child care, and it's about...
Of course, but the finances always play a role in it, and you try to have a heart and not judge from afar, because no one understands what it's like when you're in those shoes. Should there be a limit, or you're saying all the way up through full term, a woman has a right to have an abortion?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any woman ever in history has said, I'm going to have a baby, I'm going to get pregnant and carry that baby to 8 months of term, and then I'm going to terminate the pregnancy. I don't think anybody wants to do that.
That has happened too many times to count, though, where these...
I'm sure it has happened, I would say, in almost all...
Like, I'm for no abortion. Incest, that's bullshit. Rape, man, I don't want it. But I don't think it should be simple. It shouldn't just be like, oh, yep, I was raped again. It's like every few months I get raped. We don't want that. We don't want that happening to women. But like, what would possess a woman who's 9 months pregnant to have an abortion? Is it scared? Just like he's saying financially? Because the piece of shit dude took off? Because if you just hated life, like many women do who have abortions, why would you let yourself get all big and stuff? You know what I mean? And I don't think it's wrong to protect women from doing something that they're going to regret. I don't think it's wrong.
All those cases, there's extenuating circumstances.
Who knows? But I mean, especially when there's drugs involved and people aren't thinking clearly, at the end of the day, it is happening.
What I'm saying is I don't think any woman sets out saying, I'm going to carry a baby for 8 months and abort him.
Sure, but they could change their mind at 8 months, and this is what we've seen. So should they be allowed to do it full term?
Yeah. So again, I respect people who, I think there's a very, very good argument.
He respects women that at the last moment would kill their child. I understand him sympathy, man. Like, I mean, I'm a hardliner, but I get it. I do get it. But the answer is not to just let him go through with it. That's not the answer. I get where he's coming from. And he's got 1 foot in ignorance. I can tell that. No matter his libertarian views and shit or whatever about bodily autonomy, he is ignorant on abortion. No doubt.
That the state has a interest in protecting a fully formed fetus. I absolutely think that argument is very convincing.
As FYI, in case somehow you're watching this and you don't know that, fetus is just Latin for baby.
But again, I come down to the fact that I don't trust the state, and I think we need to trust the woman.
Trust the woman who is killing her child. Trust the woman who initiates, 80% of the divorces in this country, the woman initiates. They've been lied to. They've been lied to and convinced to be miserable and unhappy and to kill their own children. I don't think that's okay.
I think that's a satisfactory outcome because there's always going to be instances where bad things happen.
Yes, we can't prevent that.
Either way, there's going to be bad things.
But so in other words, keeping it as is with Roe versus Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion?
No, I wouldn't leave it to the states.
You wouldn't, right?
No, I would.
So he says no federal, and then she says, okay, yeah, so it's the states. And he says no states. Well, then it would have to be a federal law saying that abortion is allowable at any point. He's just doesn't know what he's saying.
He would say completely, it's up to the woman.
My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have government involved.
Even if it's full term?
Even if it's full term.
Okay, and I think that's what I wanted to clarify, because there are especially people in the middle trying to determine which way we go, and some people are one topic voters, correct? But with this issue in particular, it's a tough one, and I know there's no simple answer. And as a Catholic, that definitely is something that is a...
Yeah, he's a Catholic. He's a person who professes to believe that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior of his life and the life of those babies. So he's a liar. He is a liar.
Concern with many practicing Catholics that it would be okay to allow a woman to do that.
I don't think it's ever okay.
It would be allowed. It would be allowed.
I think.
That's enough of that. Now that didn't last very long. Okay, and according to NBC News, RFK Jr. walks back support for full-time abortions following pressure from campaign. You said it, buddy, man. You said it. Once the baby is viable outside the womb, it should have rights and is and it deserves society's protection. Now, that's a moderate position that he just jumped to, from like the most extreme position to a moderate position. But viability outside the womb, whether something's good or bad, good or evil, it doesn't change depending on the day of the week or the year or the era, because children have a much because babies are viable much more sooner now than they were 1,000 years ago. You know, right? So viability can't be you can't determine whether it's viability can't be the determining factor, because that can change. What if a woman goes into labor in the woods? I don't know, or is trapped in a blizzard. Technically, right? The baby's less viable than if she goes into labor in a hospital, right? So viability can't be a determining factor. Heartbeat? And now pro-lifers always go, well, what about people with pacemakers? I mean, it's true, but I mean, it's like, okay, well, if you were writing legislation, you'd say a detectable heartbeat, artificial or otherwise, right? So that is one you could go to. I guess if you're ever going to come to a place, that's what it has to be. Before the heart started beating, it was still there. You know, it developed and started developing at the moment of conception. So, Bobby Kennedy, you ruined your chances with me, and thankfully a lot of other voters. You did probably pick up some Biden supporters, though, and I hope they allow you on the debate stage, even if you stick it to Trump a little bit, because I think you'll make Biden look even worse. However, despite my disgust with Kennedy's opinion on the bodily autonomy of a woman, he's still worthwhile. Get this book, read this book, or the audio book, and he doesn't read it, okay? This is great. And I don't want him to be Attorney General of the United States, but I would like him to be a special prosecutor. And I would like for him to go after Big Pharma and sue Big Pharma for damages that have been done to people by medications that were paid for by the government. And I want to see him go after drug companies for antidepressants that aren't effective and don't do anything. And then, as part of the plea agreement, you get them to agree that they won't air commercials anymore, which they're the biggest advertisers there are. So it would decimate the TV industry, but that would protect the American people, because they are convincing the American people that they are sick and they need pills to be normal, and that is bad for us. That is what he could do for us. I don't want him to be president of the United States. I do not want him picking Supreme Court justices. I don't want him passing laws or signing laws. But he has skill. He is a lawyer. He can fight for us. He can make life better. So, RFK Jr., we hardly knew you. Good luck on the campaign trail. I wish you would have picked a better vice president. It would have made it more interesting anyway. And I hope to see you in the Trump administration someday very soon. Folks, that's all I got today. I did want to finish with a thought. I was listening to Tim Pool podcast, and Benny Johnson was on it. And they were talking about Stormy Daniels, and apparently her testimony about seances. Yeah, she was in her testimony against Trump. She was talking about seances and demons and shit. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before about the abortion issue. Whatever happened to Stormy Daniels because men weren't protecting her, to make her the way she is, that's a man's fault. At least one. Well, no, at least two. Because one of them should have been protecting her and one of them shouldn't have been victimizing her. So she's had at least one guy fail her to not protect her and one guy violated her at some point is my guess. And probably many of both to lead her to being a Satanist is what she described. She's got Satanist tattoos. She's into witchcraft. She's a Satanist. It's just... whether you believe in God or not, you can't say that men are doing a good job at... Whether it's you think we emerged from the sea to what we are now, we were protectors up until about 25 minutes ago. And we let it happen, men. Men, we let it happen. And women, I apologize on behalf of men. And there's only one thing we can do about it. We can fix it. Try to kind of go back to a better time. And that doesn't mean that women have to go back to the kitchen. Exactly, per se. They want to. This shit ain't working, though, folks. It ain't working. We need family. We need loved ones. We need community. And we are surrounded by temptation and distractions and just sin all around us. So, folks, have a good weekend. I will see you soon. Have a good one. Bye.
This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time.
This war stops now.
End the war. Bring freedom to our people.
No more tricks. No more lies. Only truth.
This is where we hold them! This is where we fight!